Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us for our webinar this afternoon about migrating from third-party output providers to BI Publisher. Can you and should you? My name is Mike Guerin. I'm the president of Team Kane, and I will be the primary presenter today. I've been with Team Kane for 16 years as of May of this past year, 2017. It was 35 years ago that I first touched JD Edwards, so it's a long time. We do also have Rain Dalton, who is our BI Publisher guru, on the session with us, and we will be a bit later on in the broadcast flipping over to actually getting into BI Publisher and showing you some of the stuff that you can do with it. So Rain does not allow me to use his picture because he says he looks far too much like Brad Pitt, and he gets far too many calls afterwards. So a little bit of humor there for you. What we're going to be covering off is a little bit of basics of BI Publisher. We also want to touch on the BI Publisher release information and a couple of specific releases because it is very relevant for organizations that are looking at or thinking of going from Optio, Formscape, Transform, Createform to BI Publisher. We want to talk a little bit about BI Publisher versus third-party solutions, and that's specifically there are some things that right now clearly you cannot do in BI Publisher that you can do in the other solutions. So in fairness to what you can't do, we want to call that out. We wanted to talk then about three specific customers that we've worked with over the last couple of years in BI Publisher. There's some specific stories and takeaways that we want to make sure that you're aware of as part of them. We also want to talk then about what we call the BI Publisher fast track process, and to let you know what you can do, because this is often well beyond what most people are aware of with BI Publisher. We want to expose you to what we call our BI Publisher packs. So that's some very advanced capabilities within what you can do for BI Publisher. So I did want to, just to start off with, we might have asked this on the registration, but just so we get a bit of a sense for it, wanted to find out where the people on the audience are at in terms of what you're using for forms output right now. So there's a number of options that are on there, 5, and you can select multiple ones. So if the folks on there can take a minute and just indicate what they're using right now, that would be great. Give us a bit of a sense for the audience. Createform, Optio, Formscape are in the lead by a fair bit. It doesn't look like we have a lot more coming in, so share this in a second, but about 2/3 of the people are using Createform, Optio, or Formscape, another 15% using Transform, 23% using BI Publisher, 8% other, and 8% none are just using JD Edwards modifications. So excellent. About what we would have expected as well. So to start off with BI Publisher, in case you're not familiar with it, there are actually 2 versions of BI Publisher available for you. One is the embedded version, and that's what you use for batch jobs. So that's really the focus of what we're going over today. The other one is the enterprise one. So if you have worked with OneView reports and gone in and selected one of the options that are available and dragged and dropped some fields onto it, that's the enterprise version. So the embedded version comes with your Enterprise One or with your World software if we have anybody with World as well. The embedded makes use of the report definition within Enterprise One and a BI Publisher template that you create. It works with the JDE XML output. So if you're familiar with third-party tools like Createform, Formscape, Transform, they work predominantly with the PDF output and work with the metadata within there. So you actually send the PDF off to the Createform server, as an example, and you can inspect and work with the data within that. So the difference, or one of the differences with BI Publisher is it works with the XML output. The editing that you do is done in Microsoft Word for a BI Publisher. And you use a development plugin that you can download from the Oracle site. So Really, a lot of the design is done within Word itself, interestingly enough. So that generally leads people to think you don't have a lot of the same sophistication that you would have with some of the other tools. That's right to an extent, but I think as we're going to show you, there's an awful lot that you can do as well if you know how to make it work. So the release information, prior to tools release 913, BI Publisher was fairly hobbled, to use a non-technical term, at least in terms of some of the capabilities that you had with the other tools. We were, just as an aside as well, Createform's main partner and Transform as well afterwards for probably about 7 or 8 years. We're their partner of the year for probably 4 years running. So we know the other solutions quite well, and we actually still do a fair amount of work with those for clients that are sticking with it. So some of the sophistication that was added in the later tools release, 913 added data-driven output. So the ability to send to different printers and recipients. So that's within the run itself. So being able to take a purchase order run, for example, and split it out and email out individual documents or send them to different spots. 914 added in the ability to rename the output file and specify a location. That was really big. One of the capabilities that's been there for a long time with other products is the ability to actually name the PDF outbound and stick it somewhere. We have clients that have used that just so that it is available within the media objects within JD Edwards, so that you can call it up with a Cafe One slide out window on accounts receivable, for example, or in sales order processing, and you see related documents. So prior to 914, you did not have that ability, so that was very big. It also occurred to Oracle that we're starting to have an awful lot of people streaming things through excuse me, BI Publisher. So it might be an idea if we did something from the performance side. What they added in, and this is not something that you can necessarily control, i.e. direct output to, but you can set up multiple BI Publisher processing queues, and that can be used for load balancing, and the system does it itself. On the world side, with A92, electronic document delivery was added in, and in A93 also the ability to do direct print, and some of the same capabilities that were there in 913 for Enterprise One, so bursting, batch distribution, and transformation. So BI Publisher versus third party. Interesting from the poll that we launched earlier, most of the clients that we've worked with have used what we would loosely call the tier one solutions, and those are predominantly for bottom line technologies. Over the course of about 5 years, bottom line bought Createform, Optio, and Formscape, and then after a couple of years' time, combined them into Transform. From under the cover side, Transform is largely based on Formscape and added in some processing capabilities predominantly from Createform. But the clients that we've worked with have predominantly been those, and from what we've seen on the survey that we launched, it's pretty much the same thing for the attendees here. What we've heard in terms of frustrations from these clients, and this is really what's driving people to look at the options available directly within their stack, BI Publisher, is it's expensive to get services. We get called pretty often for people to say, I want to be able to do something. I've got some script changes or some forms changes that I want to be able to do, but there's a 4-hour minimum, and it's really expensive, like $200 or north an hour for the time, and sometimes it can take up to 2, 4, 6 weeks to actually get the work done. So that obviously impacts things if you've got a signature change that you need to do, or you need to do a bit of a refresh for one of your forms. We've also had people that have been driven to looking at BI Publisher because of the fundamental interconnectedness of technology. So they are going to a new browser version, but for what they're doing with Transform or Createform, or they're upgrading their server to SQL Server 2012, they therefore have to update and upgrade their third-party solution package. So that just starts to get a little bit messy, and we've certainly seen times when people have been forced to do an upgrade that they otherwise would not have wanted to do. The other thing, and quite honestly, this gave rise for our side to coming up with what we call our BI Publisher packs, or our BIPs. It's a lack of understanding of what is possible with BI Publisher. It is enormously flexible from a design side. We've heard clients say, well, we might as well stick there. We've got multiple logos. We've got things that need to swap out. We've got calcs that we need to do. All of that's possible within BI Publisher. So that's kind of tying into the last part with wanting to have sophistication but not sure how to get it. And that's really, every time I've seen a presentation on BI Publisher from the mothership, it talks about pixel perfect output. Pretty easy to do when you're using the enterprise version for reports and all that. A little trickier when you're looking at outbound forms and you're looking for sophistication and logic and the type of representation of the company that you really want. So to dive right into part of it, there are some things that you cannot do with BI Publisher. So these can be challenges. For some of them, there are ways around it. So first and foremost, retrieving data from JD Edwards. In our time working with Createform and Transform, using CreateStream and setting up an ODBC call, dragging some data and plopping it into a variable and putting it onto the output was pretty dead simple. You cannot do that with BI Publisher. So if there's data that is missing on your output, you have to add it in to the code. Sometimes that's not too bad. We've certainly worked with clients where we're missing an email address field, or we're missing, they want to have the supplier quote number show up on their purchase order. It's not that invasive a change, and certainly if you're on 9.2 or later with Enterprise One, the ability to use the simplified upgrade can help out with that. But you can't do that, so you need to be aware of it. Multi-purposing a document. So we had an example, for example, Leadcore Industries out west on their check run would actually process it about 4 times. So they'd process it once for printing the checks. They'd resort it first. They'd put divider pages in. They'd do another run to do a summary report. They'd do a third run to create specific information and park it off somewhere. One of the challenges with the BI Publisher is you cannot do that. When the run goes through, the run goes through. This is something that we're starting to look at and see what tools or technologies might be applied to it, and also having some chats with Oracle, but you cannot do that right now. Some things like accessing printer-specific details. One of the interesting things always with BI Publisher or with Createform was the ability to actually be able to take the data and then extract some of the information from it, create an additional file that has the metadata in it, and send it and the PDF off somewhere. Most often used, Createform/Transform makes use of this with Transform Content Center. So the ability to send the information and the relevant metadata with it, which can then be swept up. So there isn't the ability to do that right now. There are some tools out there that can assist with it, but out of the box, coming out of BI Publisher, you cannot do that. One of the questions, sorry, I know you're going to be queuing these up for me, Rain, but why is tray selection not possible? The thing with tray selection is it's very specific to the printer and to printer commands that you need to send through. So with Createform, you had the ability to create a tray mapping file and send that in addition to the document to the printer, and use that to trigger the actual commands on the printer to say select from tray 2 or from tray 3 or from tray 1. So without the ability to create the additional file for the tray mapping and send that through and have that ability to recognize that smarts in BI Publisher, that's one of the challenges. You can actually send it to a different printer. The difference is, or to a different tray, you need to create a different printer for it. So you could have your Lexmark 12345 printer and tray 1, and Lexmark 12345 printer and tray 2, and that would work fine. So you're controlling it in the printer setup. But the sort of stuff that you can do pretty easily, you cannot do in a similar manner. So that's the main stuff that we've seen. And again, we've worked with a number of customers in switching them over. When we hit walls like this is where we say, I wouldn't say full stop, but it's going to make it more challenging for you. So what we see and hear from customers as well is that we talked about the compatibility and keeping things like OS versions and browser versions in sync. One of the challenges for people is this coexistence thing. So given that Enterprise One out of the box is a multi-foundation, there's differences in tool sets and all that. There's the ongoing support. When you're upgrading, it's just part of what you're upgrading. So if you're going from tools 89814 to tools 921, part of the upgrade is upgrading the tools, and that includes BI Publisher. So keeping within the stack is normally something that customers would prefer if possible. There's also, you've got an investment, and the investment implies ongoing care and feeding. From one side of it, that means that you need to continue to pay your maintenance, typically 20 to 22%, depending upon the solution, for your annual maintenance. And unless you have the skills in-house, you're relying on external consultants. And if we go back 5 years ago, there are certainly less people that are very familiar with Transform, Createform, Formscape, Optio than there used to be. And a normal trend that would likely continue. The same as with World Software Skills. So if you don't have the skills in-house, you're reliant on a dwindling skill set, and you're also paying maintenance on something that is outside of your core stack. When we've worked with customers to go to BI Publisher instead, once you understand and have a sense for how to do things, you can take this in-house. Because, again, it's part of the stack. There are things that can be done to get you up and running on BI Publisher faster and to be able to leverage capabilities that you might not be able to have yourselves. The other part, eliminating future consulting costs and maintenance costs, truly, if you can bring it in, bring it up, get it running, get somebody up to speed, given that BI Publisher is probably the foundation for your reporting in general, it's not a bad skill set to have, and you're less dependent upon outside consulting firms, including Team Kane. Wanted to talk now about a couple of specific customers, and the relevance for this is these were people that were using other products and that have gone at least part way to BI Publisher. So Ledcor, I touched on earlier, they were a very heavy Createform user with a lot of complicated scripts and a lot of complicated processing. Their checks, for example, they ran out of north of 100 bank accounts with the requisite signatures and everything else that goes with it. They wanted to move away from Createform as much as possible just to get it within the stack. They're very much an Oracle and an Enterprise One central organization. In working with them initially, we stated pretty clearly there's some stuff that you're just not going to be able to do. It's just the way it is. They said, that's fine. Let's see what we can do. So the first cut about a year and a half, coming up on 2 years ago, was looking at some of the more standard reports. So some of the registers, some other standard output from it. There was also a PM, a preventive maintenance schedule report, an AR statement, a purchase order, and a debit statement they wanted to get switched over. So none of these required the sophistication that was needed that we could not replace. So that was the first part. The second part, late last year, was they wanted to move a bunch more over. They wanted to get even more into BI Publisher. So within a time crunch, and I think, Rain, you were working on this, but we had about 4 or 5 weeks where they wanted all of this done. So 22 different payroll reports and registers, payroll automatic deposit advices delivered via Image Now, pay stubs for email delivery to employees, and a summary payroll file. That's all the stuff they wanted to get done. So that was moved over and created in BI Publisher. A bunch of this was done by Ledcor. Some of it was done by Team Kane, some of it using some of our packs like the AR statements. The real point with this one was they had some internal skills. We helped to bring them up to speed and knowledgeable of what the art of the possible with BI Publisher was. The takeaway that really wanted to share with everybody here is you can do this piecemeal. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You can get started on it, learn, move some stuff over, cut down on the dependency, and gear up to the point where you can then tackle the last sophisticated ones and see what the options are and get purely onto BI Publisher. The next one, and there's an interesting kind of tie back to Ledcor on this one, but there's a company up in Canada called Dream. Dream is in the property management organization. If you happen to be going to In Focus this year, they will be doing a presentation on this process there, so just keep that in mind. So one of the requirements that they had was because they're in property management, they do check printing across multiple instances of Enterprise One, and they also had a boatload of bank accounts, and each bank account had different signature limits and signature files to be used. They also changed this probably 20 or 25% each year. So people leave, they come up with new bank accounts. They also wanted to move away from Create Form, and this was what was holding them back. The thing with Create Form is when you're looking at stuff like this, you need to be building up the bank account, the micro information. You need to be specifying a bunch of the stuff, either embedding it into the report output or doing the logic within Create Stream, for example. So there's still hand touch in development that was required. They wanted to avoid that, and they also wanted to look at what options might be for getting control of that back into their hands. So they had the skills in-house for BI Publisher in general. They've done a bunch of other forms, but the sophistication they're looking at here made it more difficult. So we worked through and talked with them and said, we can do this and we can push it so that back in Enterprise One you have that capability. There is a customization or a couple of customizations we will need to do. So we give you two choices. We can build it within the template and build the logic in there, but it means you need to go in and update it when there's changes, or we can build the custom table. And they said, absolutely the custom table. What we did then with them is we created, if you're familiar with the bank file, the 0030, we came up with an F55 version of that. In that table, we built in the signature limits, the signatures that should be used, gave them the ability to actually create the full microline, specify where the signature file locations would be. So they're able to go in with this and for their accounts payable bank accounts specify for bank account 1 up to 10,000 2 automatic signatures, up to 25,000 1 automatic signature, above 25,000 no automatic signatures. They can also specify the signature file to use, and behind the scenes in this we also have a maintenance spot where they specify where on the shared locations those are. So, and building up the microline was very important. Working with another customer where they also have, I'm drawing a blank on the processes, but it's basically a fraud prevention capability. So there's a couple of extra characters that are added. In addition to that, we needed to update, in their case, the 04572C, so the Canadian check process, to grab this information from the table and pass it through. And we updated the BI Publisher pack that we had to use this information. The net result of that is they were able to drop Create Form. That was the last thing they were dependent upon for it. And all of the information and the capability to maintain what they need to do and change on a regular basis, they're doing in JD Edwards now. So the main point with that is, again, there might be limitations, but there can be limitations on your existing tool. And you can get fairly sophisticated. There just might be a little bit of creativity that you need to apply to it. So, sorry, I just had to pause for to cough for a bit, running a bit of a cold here. So the other one, we worked with a company in the U.S. called the Dixie Group, and they were looking at doing an upgrade from 9.0 to 9.2. So, and as part of that, they wanted to deprecate Optio. So, you know, the upgrade was, that's fine, not a big problem. If they wanted to stick with Optio, they would have had to do a server upgrade. And also the ability to make the type of changes they wanted to do was definitely getting more challenging for them. At the time, they did not have the skills in BI Publisher, but they wanted to get there. When they were looking at kind of rough cutting it themselves, they figured for each of the main forms, it was going to take them about a month to do the basic designs for it, and then adding on from there for additional time. And for what it's worth, that's pretty common. if we're talking to customers about creating a purchase order, for example, our normal thought is if you're doing, or our normal comment and what we've heard from other customers is if you were doing this yourselves, starting out with BI Publisher, you're probably looking at a couple of weeks to get a functioning basic design done. And then if you want to add sophistication, it's beyond that. So we were working the upgrade with them. We were talking with them ahead of time. So we exposed them to the advanced forms that we had pre-built. So that was the AP checks, sales order invoices, and payroll checks. It absolutely suited what they were looking for and gave them an awful lot more than they would have gotten trying to design the base stuff out of themselves. As is the case in virtually every instance that we worked with clients, there were some updates that they wanted to have done, and that's absolutely fine. So we put those in. They went live with the 9.2 upgrade with BI Publisher and were able to deprecate Optio. As part of the process as well, we brought them up to speed on what we had done and gave them some skills transfer on BI Publisher, and in particular some of the sophistication that would help them out going forward. So the whole idea there was getting it to the point where they had the benefits of the sophistication and they were able to work with it going forward. So the end result for them was they were able to get fast track to the results and get the knowledge transfer so that they could be self-sufficient for going forward. I'm going to stop at this point, Rain, and see if there's any questions that have come in that might make sense to answer. I know we had a couple that came in from people ahead of time with regards to, you know, some of the stuff that you can do. And I think we've answered most of it.
Right.
While you're doing your part of the presentation, I'll read through some of the other ones and see if there's others. But any other questions we can answer, Rain?
One came in about tray selection, but we addressed that in the slide. And by all means, if anybody has any other questions about anything we've covered, feel free to reach out to us after the presentation and we'll take those offline. Anybody who's raised their hands, feel free to input any of the questions into the questions box, and we'll be happy to address those as we go along. As of right now, nothing new.
Okay. And just in case anybody's curious, we're recording this session, as we do with all of our webinars, and we will have a link that we can share with you for the recording. And also, obviously, if anybody would like to get a copy of the core PowerPoint itself here, PDF format, I'm happy to do that for you too. So, all righty. So we mentioned about you know, kind of a fast track process that we worked with for some customers. With the forms that we've developed, and again, you know, if we draw ourselves back, geez, it's probably 2.5 years now with Ren and Rain coming up on it, but coming from the sophisticated part of the world, which is Create, Form, Transform, to working with BI Publisher, again, we noticed that a lot of clients wanted to be able to use it, but couldn't quite get the sophistication, and we've seen some pretty basic forms out there. We took the time to create a bunch of the out-of-the-box forms in a couple of different levels. So that's what we refer to as our fast-track process. So again, case in point, someone like the Dixie Group looking at AP and payroll checks, some basic design probably would have been about 8 weeks for them to do, and without a lot of sophistication in it. With the designs that we have, and the numbers have been validated with other customers, you know, invest in the pre-built pack, allow for some time for some tweaking of it. The estimate that customers come up with is probably between $10,000 and $12,000 to $15,000 per form for developing it internally, and you know, a month to 6 weeks or so. So the whole idea would be to allow you to get to more sophistication, more capabilities, more flexibility, and do it an awful lot quicker. And again, to be able to use it to come up to speed with BI Publisher. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to switch over. I'm going to let Rain take the reins, our art, pun intended. Rain is going to call up on our Team Cane Data Center, our demo system, and also within BI Publisher within Word, and show you some of the capabilities that are there. Again, what we're going to be doing is using one of our platinum versions of, I think it's a purchase order you're going to show, Rain?
Yes, yes.
So we're going to be using the platinum version as a springboard to show you what is capable within BI Publisher, because people tend to be surprised at what can be done there. So let me just, you want to make yourself the presenter?
Sure, yeah. And sorry, it's a sales order, not a purchase order I'll be showing today, but should be fairly similar.
Okay, cool. So made you the presenter, so...
Okay, just let me know if you can see my screen. If anybody can't, it should be okay though. As I go through this as well, I will try and address the 3 new questions that came in. And if I didn't, I'll try to hit those right before the closure of the demonstration here. So what we talked about initially was that the major difference between the embedded version of BI Publisher and third-party is the use of the XML file or XML data versus the output being the PDF that's then merged or used for metadata outside to produce the third-party outputs. So what that would mean is it's all done actually internally within JDE. You never use or see the XML file when you're running your report. It just means that JDE produces the XML file and passes that on to the template object, which interprets that data and produces the output. So what I'll be showing today is the XML file and what that template looks like, and then what the merged output would look like of that. So to give you a quick view of what an XML file looks like, I'll just maximize the screen here. This is what the XML file would look like. So this is a hierarchical representation of the data in this particular report that was run. So we ran an invoice, and it's organized with subsections and sections of the invoice headers section details and the detail lines and some of the footer information. So that's all put in here in the hierarchical format, and that is the way that BI Publisher will interpret it, and that's what it needs. If it's not in this hierarchical format, you may be able to manipulate some of it, but that's just standard, and that's what JDE does. So one thing to note here, since we're going to be looking at the template, is that all the data is stored within fields, and each field has that value. So for example, we have a field here that's address number ID 193. So that's the address number of this particular invoice, and the number itself is the value of 4242. So it's housed within this field here, open and close tags. So you never really need to know this, but we will be taking a look at the BI Publisher pack, the template object, and using this information here will hopefully make it easier to understand what we're doing there. So that's just a quick view at the XML. The BI Publisher packs themselves are rich text format, so that's just an RTF file. As we mentioned, that's all done in Microsoft Word. So this is a Microsoft Word file itself. So what we'll do is we'll just double click and it will open up in Word. So this here is our Platinum version. This particular version has the terms and conditions at the end. We also do some other ones that have that on the back of every page or none. So I'm just going to zoom in here. So at the top we mentioned again that since everything's done in Microsoft Word, we're using a BI Publisher plugin. So once you've installed that, that will introduce this BI Publisher ribbon at the top that allows you some utilities to utilize the BI Publisher features. The first thing that you would do is you would load in some of the data. So we will click on sample data in the load data section, and we'll load in that XML file that we just took a look at. So this was produced when we ran an invoice. So what this allows us to do is, in this particular BI Publisher pack, we're using the data of an actual run, and we can insert some fields and produce a merged output. So what we're looking at here when we're taking a look at the actual design is we're seeing a lot of color here, and that's for the benefit of whomever will be developing this or taking a look at our pre-made via publisher packs in an attempt to distinguish some of the static text, some of the fields, and some of the dynamic text. So at the top here, we have some built-in processing options. So these are separate from the batch processing options. These here are specific to this file, specific to this template design. And that allows the user or the client to manipulate some of the features that we have built in. For example, we have a logo feature that toggles whether a logo will display or not. Some language preferences. All of ours support English, Spanish, and French, and we'll be taking a look at how that affects the output here in a second. We also have some options for whether or not the global message will be displayed before or after the details, watermarks, running totals and page totals, deliver instructions, and a status column itself. So just a quick run through on some of the features built into this specific template. What this allows you to do then is to manually set them, or you can actually have them run via data that's in the report itself. So I'm just going to scroll down here. So this is the terms and conditions. That's just in a template, we'll call it the end. And this is what the actual design of it looks like. So we're using all of the features within Microsoft Word. So we have a table, we have fields and image files. We also have, with the BI Publisher, allows us to have conditional formatting. So this logo is within a condition section of whether it should or should not be displayed, etc. What you also see is we have these gray boxes here, and we have some actual static text. So these gray boxes are form fields. These actually house some code within them. So if we double click, it will open up a BI Publisher properties dialog box. And within it, we're utilizing some extended SQL and XSL functions. So this here allows us the capabilities of choose functions, if conditions, some calculations, and pulling in actual data from the XML. So that's what these form fields are actually housing some code that pulls in the data from the XML and maybe does some manipulation. So going down here, again, a lot of color, but for the benefit of whomever will be taking a look at this, the green sections here are conditional areas. So this is the global message area. The gray is all the form fields. The purples are loops or continuous sections that will be dependent on the data itself. So this looks like a lot of cluster of data. So what we'll do is I'll just give you an example of us actually previewing what this looks like when we're pulling in the XML data. So in the ribbon, we have this preview section, and we'll preview this in PDF. So this will render the PDF output with that XML data. So here we go. Maybe I'll scroll a little bit to give a sense of the size of it. We have the typical header section here with some header detail, build to, ship to. We have the global message turned on. We have some additional fields. We have a brought forward totals. So if this, which we'll take a look at on the second page, overflows, we'll bring in totals from the previous page. We have a fairly fleshed out detail section with the description and additional details for that detail line. In the background, so I highlight here, you can see that we have a watermark. In this case, it says draft, and that can be driven based on whether this run is actually done in a DV environment or production environment, and that can just be code that does that automatically instead of having multiple versions of the template of the BI Publisher pack. At the bottom here, we have a page total and a cumulative total going forward and a footer for continuation. So as this goes on to the second page, you see we're bringing forward a total from the previous, continuing the data. And at the end here, we have the global message at the end, so that's turned on as well. We have some tax information, and we have the total section. So just want to bring your attention to the total section here. In the total, we're saying it's USD currency, and the format here, since this is an English document, we have the $sign in the front, and we have decimal, 2 decimal places with a decimal there. So just pay attention to that, since we'll be doing a run here with changing some options. And then the terms and conditions are at the end. So just going to zoom out here to give you an indication what that would look like if we are doing some multiple runs. Scroll here, there we go. So there's the second invoice, terms and conditions at the end, third invoice with that at the end. So as I mentioned, this is an example of having the terms and conditions at the end. We also have the publisher packs that have it on the back of every page. So in the PDF, that would be every second page, but when you're printing it double-sided, that will be on the back of every page. So I'm just going to close this here. So let's take a little closer look at that total section. So we have the total with the currency and the actual value of the total numeric field here. So when we're taking a look into it, double click and open up this via publisher box. This is the extended SQL and XSL language here within that. And what this is doing is we're choosing to see if our processing option at the top, we're choosing to see what value it's set to. So if it is set to F for French and the actual total exists, so that field does exist, then we're doing a format on that for a French Canadian in this particular case. It can do other built-in localizations as well. And then we have it so that if it exists, if the setting is French and the total number does not exist, we'll just produce a blank 00 output. And so on and so forth. We can do some additional calculations here and some defaults. So that's some pretty complex and pretty cool automation of just running dynamically what the output would look like based on the data in the XML or the data in the report itself. So those are synonymous, so I'm saying those both. And some actual toggle in the processing option up top. So if we wanted to, for example, change this to be a French output, we'll come to the processing options here at the top, and we have our language preference here. So what we can do here, sorry about the size of this box, it's a static XY on it, I can't resize it. But at the top here, we have setting the particular language variable. We have it set to E. So I will change this manually to F. Now, at the bottom here, we also have it so that if the language preference field within the data exists, or if it is equal to a particular value, we'll set the language. So that allows you to drive the language of each invoice on the output by the language preference in the report itself. So in this case, we don't have the language preference. We're just going to use it manually. I'll set it to F for French. So just by changing this one character from E to F, we'll do the preview on PDF again. So as you can see here, we immediately have the labels changed to a different language. So the global message itself is driven by the data, which is English. So that's the global message being in the English format there. However, all the labels are being driven by the language preference. So what we'll do here is, as we mentioned, to draw attention to the total, we'll go to the end. And as you can see, the total here is set to be displayed in this particular way. We have the comma for the decimal and the currency, the $ at the end of that value. So that was automatically done based on the language field and some of the dynamic currency coding that we have in that field itself. So pretty powerful with our pre-built packs here. All those options and codes already built into it. And I can, as I say, these processing options can be driven with a manual change or can be driven with the data itself. So one thing here, I know that there was a question about barcodes, is the static text here, as I'll highlight here, not in the form field, that is set to a specific font. So in this case, Calibri 12, for example. So what you can do with the font itself is you can set it to be a particular microfont. we in our checks use Morovia E13B, so that's an ISO standard that we've been using and have had no issues having that approved by banks. And we can also do barcodes. So there is the barcode. I know Andy Ridding in the questions, you mentioned that you're using the free barcode 3 of 9 font, and you would like to use the code 128. Now, as long as you have that installed on the enterprise server to properly interpret the template font, there should be no issue in the output rendering that properly. The difference is, of course, those are different fonts, so there's spacing variations within the actual barcode slabs, or however you want to use the term there. So it shouldn't be an issue if you're changing the particular fonts there. There are notable differences in the free version versus ones that you purchase that are based on ISO standards, and that gets down to when you're zooming into an extremity on the actual pixels of the barcode. So the free version, I know that 3 of 9 is very popular and it tends to meet those standards on the long run, but it's always recommended on our behalf, since we're dealing with actual banks or dealing with actual companies that approve them, to use ones that meet standards, and those are typically ones that you would pay licenses for. No issue in trying one versus the other if it works for your particular case. And the reason I say that is different scanners may not work. So ISO standards obviously support the variations there. I know that there was also a question on the benefits of using BI Publisher over other third parties. I touched on a few of them. One was that this is all done within JDE. It's all embedded. It is already in there, and you don't need to use a third party to do it. It's automatically done via the running of the report, grabs the objects with the template, and then you have the output. There's also the fact that it's done within Microsoft Word, so all of the template design and configuration can be done outside of JDE entirely on somebody's desktop if they have the BI Publisher add-in installed. Another factor for what the advantages of it is, since we've made a change here, I'll show just the ease of uploading this into the system. So we're not using a third party, we're using JDE itself. So we've made a change to that design. What we'll do now is we'll go into the menus. Here's just a quick overview of what we're going to be doing. There is a program that houses all the template objects. So that's where we will be going to upload the new template. And then when you run the job, you can see the outputs in the specific report definition outputs or in the work submitted jobs as you normally would. So since we made a change to that template file, we'll go into the template objects repository, P95600. Just load this up. And we'll select this object here for the sales order. This is all done in the menus here with the object already created. So we'll select that. Verify that it's still that description, all these settings here is good, and it will ask us if we want to upload a new template. So we'll say yes, we do. We'll just quickly browse to that newly modified RTF file and load that in. We're confirming the effectivity dates. October 26, yes. We'll leave the end date open so that this is indefinitely a valid object. And that's it. Right now, the newly modified BI Publisher file, the RTF file, is uploaded into the system, and the next run of the sales order will have those options there. I think that should cover most of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Rain. See if we have any more questions that come in. One of the I wanted to highlight in here some of the stuff that is just there that might be kind of obvious and all that you're used to, but which we've definitely seen clients have a challenge with, is things like when we looked at the details section, the sections were auto-sizing. So that's there. You can do that. A lot of people creating BI Publisher stuff from the get-go have trouble with that. Things like calculations, creating additional stuff, putting logic that's in there as you saw. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. We get asked a lot about things, we get multiple logos. So you can definitely use conditional logic in there to display multiple logos. What Ren has also been able to figure out is be able to auto-size things like logos. We definitely use it with signature files on checks to auto-size things so that they fit within a particular boundary. When you're looking at forms, it's all about real estate and things fitting where they are supposed to. So just wanted to mention that is a capability. That is something that you can do. Yeah. And Rain's figured it out. So if you're nice to him and buy him a beer, he might be able to share that with you. So
absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to take back presentation.
Yes.
Rain. Make the presenter and show my screen. So, and if you can monitor my good friend for additional questions, I think we had a few more, but let's kind of run through and then get to last questions at the end. So kind of putting it all together, the designs are pre-configured, they're easy to maintain, and they're ready to go for production. Things like controlling the logo, global messages, watermarks, languages, brought forward totals, cumulative totals, that's all sophistication that's built in there. Because we're quite familiar with sales orders, purchase orders, AP checks, payroll checks, pick slips, pack slips, AR statements, deposit notices, the majority of the fields that most people would want to have in there are included in it. So our thinking is it can be a load and go for you. Part of the process as well, we're going to be working with somebody on the purchase order side next week, actually, Rain, you and Ren from the 43500, the knowledge transfer so that you can pick it up and be able to be self-sufficient going forward. What we've got out of the box right now is the list that you see there. So there's not an awful lot that is standard output that you would want that there aren't designs already there for. The Port of Portland at Collaborate in Vegas this year did a presentation very specifically on what they did on the payroll side. So that was the checks, direct deposit notices, ADAs, and also a total compensation statement that we added to our group with them. When we created these, we recognized that there are some customers that just want to get going with BI Publisher and don't need a lot of sophistication. You know, they come up and they say, we got a single address, we got a single logo, we don't have a lot of yada, yada, yada. A basic design will be fine for us. There's other ones that say, we need more options. We want the flexibility. Language in particular can be a big one depending upon geographically where you are and where your customers and suppliers are. So we have two basic versions of these that are available. You have to buy them. I'm sorry, my team does not let me have my Santa Claus hat on for stuff like this. But the good news is there's no maintenance for it. So once it's yours, it's yours. The other advantage to it is if you want to see some of the sophistication and learn how Rain was able to do the magic with languages or auto-sizing stuff, it's there for future ones that you want to work with. So other extensions that we have, we talked about the design that we did working with Dream for the bank file. We're also in discussions with a customer where they are looking for purchase orders to be able to have the logo assignment and to be able to have that data driven. So we're investigating, that's not uncommon. So we're investigating the ability to do that and to do it in a generic sense so that whether it's AP checks, purchase orders, sales orders, AR statements, you know, whatever it is, that we can have a structured, standardized approach to do that and pass that information through rather than hard coding it within the design. So early stages yet on that. Just some basics of BI Publisher. We figured if we had a couple minutes at the end, we could get to this slide. So Rain showed some of it, but within JD Edwards, what you need to do to go through with this. Most of the steps we would do on a fat client, and there's one that you can only do on a fat client. So typically when we're doing this or we're working with clients on it, we're doing this on a fat client. You need to create the template object. So that's the XML publisher object. So you're going to OMW for this. Create a blank object, or if there's one already there. You need to create the report definition on the fat client. So with that, you're specifying the source UBE and the version. So R43500 XJD0001 and the XML template that you created from the first step. That's also where you can specify the bursting. Normally when you're starting up, you want to make sure the design works first, solve one issue or one challenge at a time. But you can go back in there and do the bursting. You access the version in the configuration, so you check it out. And the designs are version specific, although you can link a design to multiple versions. So you do not have to have, if you've got 7 UBE versions, you do not have to have 7 designs, but you have the flexibility to specify different designs for different versions. So you create the template in Word, like Rain showed you. You link to the XML, you do the logic and conditions, and the last step, like Rain showed you, is doing the upload from the P95-600 into JD Edwards. And again, one of the nice things that's there is if you've got a change that's going to be coming up, i.e. January 1st, you're rebranding, you can have everything ready to go so that the new branding, if you're changing bank accounts or anything else, they're all set for when you actually switch over. So I think that's it. We're just the one cheesy marketing slide, because I mean we like to get the word out there. We're talking about BI Publisher and knowledge and all that. Team Kane's been around for over 20 years. We do upgrades, migration, spot consulting, training, rollouts, everything. We represent what we think is the best purge it, or archiving and purging for World and Enterprise One, working with a number of customers on an AP automation solution called ScanMan. On the technical side, automated package build with notifications, self-service password reset. We work with DWS with their Swift Test product and the other ones. We've been a partner for Spreadsheet Server for a very long time, and the same thing with RF Smart. So there's a lot of other things that we do, and the simple message here is if there's other things beyond what we're talking about here on the BI Publisher side that we can help with, we'd love to chat with you about it. We're really friendly people. We're not cheesy, pushy salespeople. We're strong and valued members of the community, and we like to keep it that way. So we're not going to try and reach in and steal your watch and sell it back to you. So we got a few other questions that are out there. If people are starting to drop off, I do have one very, very personal specific request, and that is we're going to reach out to you after this session. We want to find out what your thoughts were. There's an exit survey on the way out. If you want to fill it out, that'd be awesome. We'll draw from whoever fills it out and give you an offer of a gift card as a thank you from it. But when we reach out, just give us some feedback. If we're asking you whether you think the packs might be of interest to you, let us know. If they're not, cool, that's fine. But just get back to us. Let us know. Love to see if we can help out. So, Rain, other questions that we can answer that have come up?
Yes. So I'm just actually answering one now from Andy Ring again about the JD Tools upgrade gotchas. If you have BI Publisher reports that are created in older versions, the only real issue or kind of a issue you may run into is that if you're going to an upgrade that introduces additional report definition options, so as we mentioned about the tools introducing additional bursting options and email recipients, you might just want to review and confirm that the settings in your report definition do carry over. We've had very little problem when dealing with upgrades from an older version of BI to a newer one, but if you know of any issues you run into specifically or need any advice or assistance on that, feel free to reach out to us. Those objects are not very complex, they're fairly straightforward, so upgrading to the newer versions just introduces additional options. We also have one that says, the current BI pack designs that we listed are they already built in to BI Publisher? So forgive me if I don't address that in its entirety. I just don't understand it fully, but the BI Publisher packs that we have, that's what we're referring to as the template itself. So that's a pre-made template. If you have the objects made in JDE and have them configured, you would just upload our template into the objects there, and that will address the output. We do base ours on the standard reports, so R0 or R43500, R42565, etc. So if you have a standard report, then that should work with our designs.
Yeah, and as just for that question, I mean, we can follow up separately, you and I. Anybody else, the same sort of question. What we listed are on the slide where we had the shopping list of them. We do have BI Publisher pack templates pre-built for those.
Yes.
So one of the other, it's not a question, but often comes up is, well, we've got an R55 43500 instead. Absolutely fine. Our templates can apply to anything. It's more the data that you're looking at. We've actually, if I'm not mistaken, Rain, we've taken some situations where we've had a design that works for one, and what we're looking for in the output is pretty close to the other. So we take the design and then just we remap the fields for the specific form that might be totally unrelated, but it's a quick way to get to the end of the solution. So
yes, a lot of caveats there, but you're right. If the design's very similar, it's an expedited pursuit of creating that separate report.
Okay. Not sure if you have, and some of these we need to cycle back and just double check some things, but there's no data selected. Can you keep BI Publisher from sending the output to the email recipient? So I guess that's the classic, you run the output and the data selection gives nothing. And if it's designed to be emailed out to somebody, is there a way that you can condition so that it doesn't actually generate the output to them? Any insight on that, Rain?
Yes, so I kind of addressed that in the answer, but I will just say that here for everybody's benefit as well. So if in the report definition you have some options, you can state to have the report in its entirety sent to a specific email address. So in that particular case, if there is no data and it just runs a blank report, then it will send that blank document. However, with report definitions allowing some customization, you can base the email recipient on data in the report. For example, the customer's email address, send it to them, or department email address, etc. So in that case, if there is no data in the report, it won't send the email to that email address. So, but you do have some options and some flexibility in what you can accomplish. So there are some ways around that.
Okay, cool. One person, and this is probably a fairly, not an unusual question, but can the example that we showed be shared later? And again, we are straightforward people, and the short answer to that is probably not. And the reason for that is we created these templates as something that could be provide value to people, and if we're providing value to people, we're looking to monetize it. You know, in other words, i.e., sell it. So what we can do is if you've got BI Publisher running and you want to use some of the sophistication that's there, we could certainly set up, or we could provide some consulting assistance for an hour or two, look at it and help you out. But in terms of just turning over the full designs that we've got, unfortunately, we cannot do that. So sorry about that, folks. There's another, it might be a bit of an extended question, Renee, but about code 128, you know, not a font, but part of the XML configuration, but maybe what we can do for that, because I think there's general interest on the part of people, maybe we can take that and the barcode question kind of a separate and offline, come up with some information that we can provide back and get that out to everybody that's on the webinar with some thoughts or ideas. You think that would be helpful and not too difficult to do? Or did I just kill your long weekend?
No, there's a lot of information about the code 128 support. It is an advanced capability within BI Publisher, so we can definitely draft up some information and pass that along.
Okay, cool. Last little bit here, we're definitely a little bit past, but we've gotten some great questions, and it's always nice for us to engage with inquisitive people on this stuff. When we work with customers and they say, yeah, we want to see if the BI publisher packs and all that might help out for us. One of the things that is real easy for us is if you get the XML output and send us a sample, we can turn that around, like no kidding, really, really quickly and say, if it's a purchase order and you just want to see what the English format looks like, and send us the XML, send us your logo. Rain, it's not long at all for us to spin that back, right?
Mm-hmm.
The caveat with that obviously is we're going to make some assumptions on the design, but if you want to see what the pack would look like, the more sophisticated the data you sent us, the more sophisticated the output sample we can provide back to is, but we can definitely do that, and we do that on a regular basis. So we'll a couple more questions in here. We'll stay as long as we got questions coming in, folks. So how do you link the BI output to a printer, and how do you redirect output to a printer email or to JDE itself? That's in that's the bursting in the general setup, Rain, but yeah, you have the information, so I'll let you answer that.
And as you were saying that, I'm actually typing out the answer as well for the benefit of reading that afterwards. But defining the output itself, kind of a joint answer here for emails or printers, it would be done in the report definition. You can define it to be sent to a specific printer or a specific email address, or you can get a little granular there and burst, and what that means is break up the output based on a particular condition. So break out each invoice as a separate kind of output and send them based on a value in the report to specific printers. So if there's a value of a cost center A, then that invoice or that part of the output will be sent to the printer at cost center A. Cost center B will be sent to that specific printer. So that is in the data-driven output. That is the feature that the report definition as of 9.1.3 onwards supports, tools release 9.1.3. So that is all done within the report definition, and you can also define some combination of the two. Now, for sending it back into JD itself, there will be some limitations on that. You might be able to send it to a location on the network and utilize it there, but you won't be able to send it back into JDE per se.
Yeah, and I guess probably, and this might be something offline, Jeremiah, but it depends on what you might want to do with it. If it's sending it back in to be able to swept up as a media object, yeah, you can absolutely do that sort of thing. If it's for some other purposes, probably a bit of an extended conversation. Joel was asking about do a database lookup with BI Publisher to bring data onto the form. Joel, you might have come on kind of partway through the session, but one of the caveats when we're talking about migrating from other solutions to something like BI Publisher is very much that the ODBC lookup capability that you so are used to and love with create form, transform, and all that does not exist with BI Publisher with the embedded version right now. What we've seen customers do is if it's something critical, email addresses are definitely one if you want to burst out and email the individual documents, is actually updating, so throwing a quick mod for the output, the 43500, the 42565, to pick that up and make use of that. Nothing else you've seen, Rain, would allow you to be able to reach back in like in the RD definition and grab information to be able to use?
No.
Okay, cool. That's all the questions we got. We'll certainly keep this open a bit longer in case there's any additional questions, but other than that, we hope this has been helpful for you. If there's any other questions that we can answer for you, be thrilled to hop on a call and help out. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll be reaching out to each of you feel free to just, say, hey, got the information I needed. I'll reach out to you if there's anything else. If there's some interest in getting some extended help, I'd love to hear about that. If there's any interest in the BI Publisher packs, absolutely happy to hear about that. If any of you are going to be going to In Focus coming up in August, we will absolutely be there with bells on as always. When we reach out to you, just let us know if there's something that we can do to help you out. We truly are friendly people. I personally am a formal Quest ambassador and take my role in the community very seriously. So we're not cheesy salespeople. We get up every morning to try and make people's lives and organizations better. So if there's something we can do on that side, I'd love to hear. Keep it open. Jeremiah, you said you had one more query, so if you want to pop that through in the chat, be happy to answer them. For some cases, you had to work with BIP and create form. So the question is, you mentioned that for some cases you had to work with BI Publisher and create form Formscape. Normally, if we're working with create form Formscape for somebody that's looking to migrate, when we're working with create form or Formscape or transform, what we're really doing is inspecting what they've done to determine the applicability to what they want to do in BI Publisher. So, for example, with something like create form, we'll take a look at the stream scripts, see what they're doing, and say, you're doing database lookups, you're doing this, you're doing that. We can't do that in BI Publisher. You're only grabbing one field, though, so we could probably handle it in this way, make a bit of a change to it. For the design, the same sort of thing. We'll normally take a look at the design itself, because within the design, we see where the coding's been done for conditional logic and variables and all that. And we'll normally take a look at the final PDF output so we can see what the look and feel is. So that's when we work with both, when we're working with a client who's looking to migrate over. Other than that, we've worked with clients that want to stick with create form or stick with transform and just help them out with some design stuff there. So when we do that, we'll normally point out where it could be different or better if they were using BI Publisher, just to make sure that they are aware. And we've absolutely seen, Rain, I know on your slide it's the same thing. It's funny how often we go into an account that is using create form, one that we're quite familiar with, and see that they have 17 designs for the purchase order, largely for things like different logos or some other different stuff. So, and be able to let them know that, your 17 designs on the third party, you can end up with one or maybe two designs if you're using BI Publisher, because all of that flexibility can be built into the design. So not only is it getting them into the Oracle stack, but it's also simplifying their life from a forms design side. So, Rain, I've just wandered away to pour myself another coffee here, so if you can monitor the questions and see if anything else has come in.
Absolutely. A continuation with Jeremiah's. So it was only to check the outputs on both tools. So after that, BI Publisher can replace the old tool, Formscape, in our case. Yes, like we mentioned, there are some limitations that with BI Publisher. So if it makes sense for you to transfer from the third party to use the embedded BI Publisher, obviously it has its advantages and limitations. But if it makes sense to make that transfer, then you can replace the old tool completely with BI Publisher. So there's a lot of investigation there on outputs, where you want the outputs to go, and the versions and flexibilities. So we can definitely work with you on to see if that's, with Discovery, to see if that's a applicable approach for you, right?
Yeah, and the other thing, and this is, just like if you're doing an upgrade in JD Edwards, one of the things you do is test, test, test. It's the same sort of thing here. If you've got multiple languages, if you've got continuation, multiple pages, if you want your terms and conditions a certain place, if you want logos to swap out, if you've got signatures that need to show up, as you're going through the design and also the testing, we and you need to make sure that we are capturing sample data that represents all of that, so we can prove it out in the design so that you don't get that nasty little thing called a surprise when you actually go live with it. So we went through the same thing when we were the Create Form partner and we're working with clients and they wanted to have 17 different logos and this, that, and the other thing. We can make it happen. We need the data to show you what it looks like and to make sure that we can lock in the logic that's needed for it. You know, either out of the box with the BI Publisher packs or special conditioning that we need to do in the design or in the RD template.
Yes, and as Mike said, there we can definitely see if we can do it. JDE, as you already know, has a lot of capabilities, so we can look at workarounds for making sure we can try to apply exactly how you're doing your business right now to it. And that's all the questions now. Hang around, like Mike said, a little bit more. If you have anything, feel free to pop it into that question box.
Other than that, for everybody that's been on the session today, thanks for your time. Hope this has been helpful. Look forward to either Rain or myself having a chance to chat with you and see if there's any value that we can be providing as you move forward in your foray into a BI Publisher. Or if it's the case that it just isn't going to work for you, then we'll tell you that too. We're pretty straight up people. So thanks for your time, everybody. And if you're in Canada or the US, there's a long weekend coming up. Enjoy it.